Hi, I'm Ed Appleton and I make art objects here in Bristol in the UK. This video will show you the process of adding a Cloisonné design to a small copper vessel. This one. I have loads of books and I scoured the internet, but I found little by way of practical advice and footage of people working with vitreous enamel, and in particular doing this on curved surfaces like this one. So I hope you find this video helpful, and if you do, I'd be absolutely thrilled if you left me a comment telling me what was useful, or perhaps even sharing some of your knowledge with me. You must start with an idea. And ideas are fleeting, so you have to catch them. Don't let them escape. This design idea comes from my fear of the sea level rising because of climate change, and a brilliant song by Bob Dylan. Here's the vessel with an undercoat of enamel flux already pre-fired on. I'm measuring the round shape so I know what size my design needs to be. I'm now starting to redraw my chosen design to scale. I'm using the colours I think I want to use on the piece to see what it might look like. I quite like the post-apocalyptic colours and realise the low building is a motel. Here I am tracing the design. I'm taping the tracing to my board, and I'm going to use this traced image to guide me as I make the Cloisonné wires. I'm using 0.2mm by 1mm fine silver rectangular wire. This means the depths of the cloisons or cells will be 1mm deep, and the wires showing when the piece is finished will be 0.2mm wide. We use fine silver because it doesn't oxidize and is super soft. I'm using needle nose and small round nose pliers to form the shapes. I'm using metal snips to cut. Fine tweezers are totally essential to handle these tiny pieces. I've experimented with using fixative to hold these down, and it doesn't seem to affect the firing, but I'm not 100% sure about this. This is fiddly work, so embrace the mindful act and find a good audiobook. Get lost in it. If you get frustrated, take a break. I'm tracing again because we need to transfer the design to the vessel so we know where to put the wires. I'm using carbon paper to transfer the design on. I've used PVA glue to stick the wires to pieces before, but this blue stick product dries well. It's the right thickness, and I feel more reassured it won't affect the firing because it was designed for the job. I'm a bit heavy-handed with the blue stick here. Here I am firing the cloisons to the vessel. If you don't do this thoroughly, the enamel will seep underneath the wires. They might fall off, or you'll create an uneven top surface. Some fell off the bottom the first firing, so I put them on again and refired. Here begins the process of wet packing. I'm using a paintbrush to apply wet enamel powder to the vessel. You will see me using paper towel to periodically draw moisture out of the enamel. If you don't do this, it will sag down and make a mess. You'll need to experiment with how much or how little you apply at one time. This piece required something like 6 or 7 firings for the first layer, due to the steep sides, and then a second layer which was done in fewer stages. It can be tricky to keep the colours separate. Keep practicing. Use the final firing to fully fire all of the layers. Here I am now stoning back, as it's called. I'm using diamond grit sanding pads, moving from below 100 grit to 400 grit. Use water to prevent nasty dust and damage to the surface of the enamel. You can buy expensive machines to make this process quicker and easier. Some people stone all the way back and don't refire after this. You can create almost fully polished surface using machines. Stay patient. Take pride in the whole process. While the piece is wet and you're stoning back, you'll start to see the final piece start to emerge, which is exciting. I'm going to do a final firing, so tiny pits in the surface will fire out. Sanding back the scratches from the copper and the Cloisonné wires here. Using a glass brush with soap to get all of the fine material out of the surface. Otherwise you'll end up losing the brightness of your design when you fire it again. Here I am using a relatively rough polishing compound called Tripoli to give it a polish, and here's the final firing. Too hot and you'll burn out your colours and lose the flatness you've just worked into the surface. Too quick and you won't fully fire the enamel. It won't go glassy and you're likely to get cracks. The copper is oxidized, so the whole piece needs to be put into the pickle. Final polish is done with rouge, which is a fine polishing compound. And the final step is to wax the piece. This gives the surface a little protection, and it covers the copper to slow oxidization. Just gives it a final sheen, a final finish that I really like. And here's the final piece. It's far from perfect, but I quite like it, and I hope it's given you some ideas